Drive down a quiet country back road, and if you look closely, you'll start to notice something strange. On one side of the road, you have modern fences built just a few years ago. The paint is flaking, the wood is warping, and the posts are rotting at the base. But then, you look at the old farm properties. You see wooden fences and barns that have been standing out in the harsh sun, freezing snow, and driving rain for 50, 60, sometimes 80 years. They aren't painted or made of pressure-treated lumber laced with chemicals, yet they are solid as a rock. How is that possible? The answer isn't a miracle wood. It's a forgotten piece of old-world chemistry. For generations, traditional woodworkers, farmers, and Amish communities have relied on a surprisingly simple, inexpensive, and entirely natural concoction to protect their lumber. It's often whispered about in woodworking circles as the $2 treatment. Today, we are going to reverse engineer this rural secret. We'll look at the exact ingredients, the fascinating science of why it outperforms modern exterior paints, and how you can mix it yourself for your own backyard. But a word of warning before we start. If you mix and apply this incorrectly, you don't just risk ruining your wood, you could literally burn your house down. Let's dig in. The secret mixture. To understand the secret mixture, you first have to understand what wood actually is. When you buy lumber, you are buying a bundle of microscopic straws. While a tree is alive, those straws pull water up from the soil. When milled, they empty out. The wood dries and shrinks, but those straws remain wide open and waiting. Rain fills the straws, and the sun dries them out. This constant swelling and shrinking causes wood to crack, warp, and split. Add warmth, and those damp straws become a buffet for fungi, rot, and insects. So, modern society invented a solution: paint. Paint acts like a plastic raincoat, sealing the wood beneath an artificial shell. But here is our first pattern interrupt for today. Paint is actually one of the worst things you can put on exterior wood. Why? Because the raincoat always fails. A tiny microcrack forms, water gets inside, and the plastic shell traps the moisture. The paint suffocates the wood and accelerates the rot. The old-timers knew this. They didn't want a raincoat that sits on top of the wood. They wanted armor that lives inside it. Enter the traditional wood treatment. It's remarkably simple, consisting of 3 core ingredients that you can find at almost any hardware store. Ingredient number 1, boiled linseed oil. Pressed from the seeds of the flax plant, linseed oil has been used for centuries. When you apply it to wood, it doesn't just sit on the surface. It dives deep into those empty microscopic straws. Ingredient number 2, real gum turpentine. Do not confuse this with synthetic mineral spirits or modern paint thinners. Real gum turpentine is distilled directly from the resin of pine trees. It smells like a deep, rich pine forest. Ingredient number 3, white vinegar. Yes, the exact same cheap acidic liquid you have sitting in your kitchen pantry right now. And for those who wanted heavy-duty protection, especially for wood facing brutal, constant weather, they would sometimes melt in a handful of pure beeswax or a dollop of dark, sticky pine tar. But how do these humble ingredients, which cost pennies by the ounce, outlast expensive modern chemical sealants? To answer that, we have to look at chemistry. Why it works. When you mix these ingredients, you aren't just making a stain, you are making a botanical time capsule. Let's break down the science of why this exact combination is so incredibly effective. First, the white vinegar acts as a gentle cleaner. Its mild acidity kills surface mildew and opens the pores of the wood, prepping the canvas. Next is the turpentine. Linseed oil on its own is too thick, leaving a sticky mess that takes weeks to dry. The turpentine acts as the delivery vehicle. It dramatically thins out the linseed oil, allowing it to penetrate incredibly deep into the wood fibers. But turpentine has a second, hidden superpower. Because it is naturally derived from pine tree resin, it contains natural compounds called terpenes. Bugs and fungi absolutely hate terpenes. It naturally discourages the things that want to eat your fence. Finally, the boiled linseed oil does the heavy lifting. Once the turpentine evaporates into the air, the linseed oil is left behind, trapped deep inside the cellular structure of the wood. And here is where the magic happens. Linseed oil is a drying oil. As it is exposed to oxygen, it undergoes a chemical reaction called polymerization. It doesn't just dry, it literally cures and hardens into a flexible, solid, moisture-resistant polymer. It turns the wood from a fragile sponge into a petrified, waterproof armor. The wood can still breathe, moisture can still escape as vapor, but liquid water from rain simply beads up and rolls off. It is brilliant. But knowing the recipe isn't enough. The way it's applied is the difference between a fence that lasts 50 years and a sticky, ruined mess. How to apply it. If you want to try this yourself, the process requires patience and cannot be rushed. First, the wood must be bone dry. Trapping moisture inside before sealing it invites rot from the inside out. The golden ratio varies from farmer to farmer, but a standard mix is 1 part boiled linseed oil, 1 part real gum turpentine, and roughly a ½ part of white vinegar. Now, here is the secret step that most modern DIYers skip. You warm it up. Never put this mixture over an open flame, as turpentine is highly flammable. Instead, you create a hot water bath. Warming the mixture lowers the viscosity of the oil even further. Warm oil penetrates deeper and faster than cold oil. Next, you slather it on generously. You can use a thick brush, an old cotton rag, or even a pump sprayer for large fences. You want to apply it heavily, working with the grain of the wood. The wood will drink it in. Let this heavy coat soak for 10 to 15 minutes while the fibers pull down the oil. And then comes the most important step of the entire physical process. You must wipe away the excess. If you leave puddles of oil on the surface, it will cure into a sticky, gummy residue that attracts dirt and turns black. The goal is to leave the oil inside the wood, not on top of it. Finally, you let it cure. It needs 24 to 48 hours of dry weather to fully polymerize. The result? A gorgeous, matte, deeply nourished piece of lumber that repels water like a duck's back. But before you run to the hardware store, we need to talk about the dark side of this treatment. Because this is where the romance ends and reality begins. The $2 treatment is not magic, and it is not a myth. It is a highly effective, historically proven method of preservation. But there are 3 massive catches you need to know. First, this treatment is strictly for above-ground use. It is perfect for fence rails, barn siding, and outdoor furniture. But if you bury a piece of wood treated with linseed oil into damp soil, it will rot. For the parts of the fence touching the earth, you still need modern pressure-treated lumber, or the ancient Japanese technique of charring the wood, known as shōsugi-ban. Second, this isn't a one-and-done solution. Unlike modern plastic-based paints that peel away over time, oil finishes slowly dry out and evaporate. Depending on how much direct sunlight and brutal weather your fence gets, you will need to reapply a fresh coat every 2 to 4 years. It's not a product, it's a maintenance routine. But the third catch is the one that can be deadly. Did you know that rags soaked in boiled linseed oil can spontaneously combust? It sounds like a myth, but it is entirely real. Remember how we talked about polymerization? As linseed oil cures and hardens, it creates an exothermic chemical reaction. It generates heat. If you take a rag soaked in this mixture and crumple it up into a ball or throw it in the trash, that heat has nowhere to go. The temperature inside the center of the rag will rapidly climb until it reaches its ignition point. Within a few hours, the rag will literally set itself on fire. Countless workshops and homes have burned down because of this simple mistake. If you use this treatment, you must either lay your used rags completely flat on a non-flammable surface, like concrete, until they are entirely stiff and dry, or you must submerge them in a sealed metal can filled with water. Treat the oil with respect, and it will respect you. So, is it really a $2 treatment? If you price it out by the square foot, making a batch in a large bucket is incredibly cheap compared to buying premium synthetic deck sealants. The ingredients are accessible, natural, and historically bulletproof. We live in a world that is obsessed with building things fast, coating them in plastic, and replacing them when they inevitably fail. But traditional communities like the Amish understand something fundamental about nature. You cannot fight the elements. You cannot seal wood away in a plastic bubble forever. Instead, you have to work with the nature of the material. You have to feed the wood, nourish the fibers, and let it breathe. When you do that, you aren't just building a fence for yourself. You are preserving a piece of craftsmanship that might just stand strong enough for your grandchildren to lean on.